Hello, welcome to Nate's Studio Desk, the place where you can come ask questions and get helpful advice. We cover program tutorials, tips and tricks, and all types of other stuff related to architecture. So today I wanted to go over the resources and materials you need for architecture school, and more specifically, and more importantly, the ones that you don't need, which is a lot of them. And there's a lot of anxiety around this topic, and there's so many lists online and recommendations of all these things that people think that you need to go to architecture school. So I wanted to dismantle that list a little bit, and more importantly, prioritize what are the really essential things to buy, and what are those things that you really can just wait or just do without. In addition to that, and recommending mostly things that you just really don't need, I want to propose a little bit of a crazy idea that I think could work, and a really nice way to connect with your community, and at the same time provide tools and resources for your fellow students, especially if this is your first year going to architecture school. Now, there is so much stuff you can buy as an architecture student or future to-be student, and a lot of it you just don't need and you can do without. So first I want to get into this little bit of a crazy idea I have, and then let's get into the list and start to parse out and prioritize what I think is most essential, and also just alternatives. While we go through that list, I want to just highlight alternatives and cheaper options, and things that they say, oh, you need this specific pen, and I want to say, no, you can just use that pen. And basically just to help you save a lot of money and prevent you from buying a lot of different stuff piecemeal, and all of a sudden, without you noticing, it starts to add up. And believe me, I am totally victim of this. I've, bought that $20 pen set, and then, a week later, buy a ruler, and before you know it, these expenses add up, and it can be a lot of money. And I want to walk through that process and go through this little bit of a crazy idea. All right, so number one for my crazy idea, before you even look into the resources that you need and mostly don't need, I want to go over this idea. Okay, so hear me out. This is my slightly crazy idea, but I really think it could work and be effective, and also be a really good way to connect with your community and meet some new people as well. So there is this dilemma. So there are tons of architecture firms, young professionals, and also recent graduates of architecture that want to get rid of supplies or have extra supplies that they don't need, and they would love to just kind of clean up their stuff. Maybe they're even moving and they don't want the hassle of carrying it around. There's probably lots of supplies and materials that they don't need anymore. They used it in architecture school and now they don't need it. One of the issues is, how do you connect with these people? So this is what my idea is. You could, on Google Slides, or if you already know InDesign, or even Google Docs maybe, make a little flyer. Donation drive for new architecture students. Architectural supplies donation drive. Something along that lines. Maybe customize it depending on where you live. I don't know. Something along the lines of new student architecture supplies donation drive. Make a very simple poster. It does not have to be well designed. It just has to have those words, maybe some contact information, and maybe a little fun image somewhere, I don't know, of pens and pencils and random stuff. So first you can get contact information for AIA chapter or also a YAF chapter. A lot of the times in the initial email you can just ask, hey, I'm doing this drive, who should I contact to get the word out about what I am doing? And they'll maybe redirect you to the person who is involved, or the lead YAF person. If you don't know what that stands for, it's the Young Architecture Forum, and it's also EP, Emerging Professionals. And so they'll point you to the right person, and they'll be able to send out your message. And that message could simply be very simple, straightforward. Hey, I'm doing a donation drive, and I want to reduce waste and redistribute extra resources that you don't need to new architecture students to relieve them of financial pain, financial burden. The next route that you could go is contact your program director or any person that you've been communicating with and let them know that you're doing this, and ask them if they have an email list of recent graduates or even current students who actually want to get rid of stuff. They realize, I have a bunch of stuff and I don't really want these pens, and I've been using this, I didn't really like it, I can't really sell it, and I would love to help out a new architecture student. So you can go through your program director, whoever you've been communicating with, and sort of send out this digital flyer to them. And then it's going to be up to you to go around and collect those resources, collect those materials, and then also redistribute them. Yes, this takes time, but I think in the end it will be a great way to meet new people and also get familiar with who is the person in AIA and who is that person in YAF, and it will start to help you get acquainted with the different contacts that you have in your area, which will be really valuable later on, especially when you're looking for an internship or looking for a job in the future. Please let me know what you think of that idea, and definitely let me know if you try it at your local school, and I'll be glad to hear how it goes. Maybe it will fail, I don't know. I don't think the worst thing that could happen is you could meet or go to a really cool firm or get no response, and then you don't have tools for school. Okay, so now I want to go through sort of big items that a lot of sites are recommending for resources for architecture school. So there's a lot of anxiety around this topic, especially because there are a lot of requirements of things that you need, and I don't want to tell you that you don't need any of them, but you sort of don't really need any of them, and all the professors are going to completely disagree with me, but that's just how it goes. But there are certain items that are helpful to have, and it's also a matter of prioritizing how much money you have and then prioritizing what are those really important things to buy, but then also looking at things and saying, hey, I could make that, or hey, I could find that or borrow that from someone. I don't really need to get that new pen or whatever it is. So the first misconception that I want to cover is the computer, because that is a huge expense that right off the bat a lot of students face. Like, what computer should I get? And first of all, you don't absolutely need a laptop. You can use school computers and you can get away with doing that. Is it the easiest thing to do? Probably not, but you also don't have to buy a new computer. And I don't think you need to get like a big rendering machine. I think you just need a computer that can handle Photoshop and handle Rhino, and you'll probably be good to go, and doing stuff with pen and paper. So speaking of which, I want to go over pens. Now online there's all these like, you need these pens, get this pack of pens, you need these pencils for architecture school. And personally, I just don't agree. I think you could literally get away with a Bic pen, and you can make amazing drawings with a Bic pen. Go on Instagram and you will see amazing artwork all done with a Bic pen. So I think when it comes to pens and pencils, you can really just scrounge around your house and find whatever you have and just start drawing with it, start using it and being really loose with your drawing, and just literally, if you just scribble, that's great. And then get, whatever pens and pencils you can find, and then just scribble with those and get used to using them and adjusting the weight that you use them, and do soft strokes and then hard strokes. There's a lot you can do with almost any pen, and it's really just a matter of getting to know your pens and utensils. If you are utensils, even if you just get one pencil, just do everything in one pencil and get really good at using that one pencil. Maybe it's just like HB, and then just do everything in that pencil, and you could just get really good at drawing in that pencil. Okay, so next up we have what I call additional drawing supplies, so like triangles and bars and things like that. Now there are a couple options for not buying this stuff. For instance, you can get a sheet of acrylic and laser cut that out. You can cut out whatever custom triangle you want. I have one somewhere in here. Let me go grab it real quick. So I just found, it's a little bit hard to see, but I found this piece of acrylic in the shop, and then I I just laser cut it out, and then I had a triangle. Let's bring that up and then put a little engraving. You can't really see it, but there's a little engraving, little logo, just to have a little fun. Some sites will recommend like different books, 101 things you need for architecture school, or it's 101 things you need to know about architecture school, and all sort of these like handbook type of books. And I just don't think those are particularly helpful. I think those are things that you just learn along the way, and you don't really need like this book to tell you those things. As far as books go, I would not get books that are like that, like manuals or even books on architects. Finding a really nice novel or some really nice poetry and just reading that and trying to get in touch with that, whatever poet or novelist that you like, because later on you will use those themes and those things to imbue into your project and really make them rich and have more depth if you incorporate some of those other things from other disciplines that are not architecture, not sort of these practical how to be an architecture student. So that's my advice on the book front. Okay, so next up we have scales and rulers, and in that category of things, and tape measures, that would be in that category too. And what my advice would be actually just to print out a scale on hardstock paper, and you could just use that as your ruler or your scale. I don't think you need to buy a plastic scale, at least at first. And honestly, this is something when you do your donation drive that there'll be a lot of extra, and I feel like there's just a lot of extra scales in the studio to begin with, and you can either ask a friend to use one when you need one, or like I said, just print lines, make one in Rhino, or use a template online and make an architecture scale and print it out on cardstock, and you could get a architecture scale. Why not? So that is an option. As far as a tape measure, that's another thing you can usually find in the shop. It is kind of nice just to walk around everywhere with a tape measure and just start measuring stuff, bathrooms and doorways and heights of rooms and all that kind of stuff. But that's also something you can hopefully find at your shop. They have a tape measure that you can use. All right, let's see. A lot of resource guides also recommend like backpacks and different gear like that. And that to me, I just don't think is necessary. I think you could literally, whatever you have currently, you don't need a backpack specific for architecture school. It can really just be anything. Now I use a backpack, but you could just not use a backpack at all, honestly, and just walk around with your books. Or a lot of times students are in their studio all the time and then they walk to their class, and so you don't even need a backpack for that. You just literally just carry it. You could use a cardboard box, maybe, I don't know, maybe a basket or a purse, whatever you like. But I don't think you need to get a specific backpack for architecture school, at least at first. Next up we have cutting mats, and that is probably pretty useful, but you could also use chipboard or any type of cardboard as a cutting mat. This is something that I would probably put on the list of maybe prioritize, or at least find someone who has an extra one. This is definitely something that people want to get rid of after architecture school, and so asking for a cutting mat could be a good option. So check that out. I think I would err towards the side of finding some solution for cutting, because you don't want to cut up your desk or the floor. So next up on the list we have sketchbook. Now you might be thinking, I'm going to architecture school, I'm going to buy this 10 sketchbooks. But honestly, what you could do, especially at first, is just go to your school and get a bunch of paper, printing paper, which is like bond paper, and go on some YouTube videos and find some really simple binding techniques. And you can literally just make your own sketchbook for free, essentially. So next up we have a drafting board, and I think this is going to depend on the school that you're at. So this is my drafting board, and this was something a student left behind, and so I got this for free. And so, like I said, just hanging out in the studio and asking graduate students, it works. And what I like about this one is that it's small, and so that's really nice. I don't think you need some big thing. And what I did for this is I just cut a new mat. And so, it looks newer, but when I got this thing, it looked kind of crappy. And then I just cut a new mat and put it on it, and it literally does the trick. And I literally got it donated from an architecture student who was like out the door, and they're like, I don't want this piece of crap, it's kind of falling apart. And I spent like 30 minutes kind of fixing it up and then putting a new mat on it. Probably took about an hour, maybe put some double sticky tape on it, and I basically had a new drafting board. So I think definitely just being aware of just being in the studio, and especially on the first day, sometimes recent graduates are leaving and they're getting rid of stuff, or there's stuff in like scrap traps. So definitely look and check that out. And then we have like model making supplies like X-Acto blades and saw knives and things of that nature. And for this, I think a lot of that stuff you can find in the shop, and I would just kind of hold off on it. I think buying an X-Acto blade knife is useful, and just get like the cheapest one possible, and then for like the X-Acto blades, maybe just like buy them from a friend piecemeal, or buy a big pack and share it with a bunch of students. So I think an X-Acto blade, I would probably prioritize that, just because it's nice to have around. Again, I've gotten like 3 free ones before, just from students graduating, or people who had an old one that didn't really work too well and they just got rid of it. So there's that. And then there's recommendations on like headphones, or what else is on here, like different storage devices, like plastic tubes and stuff. And I have one of those. Maybe I'll get one out. So this is that tube, and it's just not great. Yes, it's useful. How about we'll say that? Yes, it is useful. Yes, I use it. Yes, I like it. But do you need it? No, absolutely not. But it is helpful to have around, especially if you get it as a present. Yeah, so I think those are the major things. And I really just want to say that it's important to kind of look at all of your expenses as one big chunk, and prioritize what you're going to spend money on and what's really important. A lot of the stuff you think that you need it and you need it now. Just hold off on like 4 days on buying it, and then think do I actually need that? No, I just kind of wanted it because it was cool. And so I think also just kind of holding off on buying stuff until you get to a point where you're like, oh crap, that would be really nice to have. And then you kind of go and get it, and you've kind of thought about it. But what the situation you don't want to be in is just buying stuff very piecemeal and not really considering it as a larger body of expenses, because then you just end up buying stuff like my Precise V7 pen, and the costs start adding up, and it's not fun when all those prices add up. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. I hope this was helpful. I hope this saves you money. And yeah, I'll see you around. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.